So this is Beau's garage. You want to tell me a little bit about it now that we're seeing it?
My plan is to make it look sort of like metalwork you might find on the side of an old car.
Okay. Um, and here's a really great example because I love this font. Did you get that from Adobe?
I do that by hand.
You did that by hand?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome, I gotta say. Let me show you some options. We haven't really talked about 3D effects on here. Um, but I'll show you some things. Let me open up your Illustrator file, which is great that you drew it. So I should have, there's Noah's. So very, very smart to come up with something that looks for, so you're a garage on here. Your idea is great to come up with. You, seriously, you drew this? You did a really nice job. Well, that was a font?
Is a font. Yeah, the second one is by hand.
Okay. Let's talk about hand-done fonts are always great on here. But before we get to this, one of the things, and you know, it's just a factor of life here. We are just, again, we deal with a lot of kind of visual cues, talking to people. Some things tend to code a little bit more male or a little bit more female. And what you may want to do on Garage here is maybe give it a little bit more heft. So if it's a good font, but maybe choose a little heavier weight for it. But on your drawing, so you want this to look like a car. When we talk about logos on cars, we tend to refer to them as badges or marks, but it's spelled M-A-R-Q-U-E on here. And I think your idea to kind of go metallic on here, I want to show you some options for you. The first thing I would do on here is, as I said, some things code more masculine, and I think a little bit heavier weight on here might serve you well. But here's an issue you run into with Illustrator with lines, and I just want to show you this a little bit. Illustrator does not deal really well with really sharp edges. See what's happening over here?
Yeah.
So you probably won't want to go that. You had this at what point? Was it? You had it at one point?
Yeah.
I might go a little bit heavier with it. And then on this, I think this is getting a little tight in here. So maybe raise that up a little bit. And what I would do is open up this stroke path panel. You might want to see if there's a different, I'm trying to think if there's a different way that you can, I don't think for an automotive logo you want to go rounded on it. I'm just trying some of these other options to see what works best. Actually, I think what you have works really well, but I want to show you a couple things you can do on here. Once you, let me make some space here. Oh, before we get into this, this just came up with McKenna. I wanted to show you. My demonstrations and my videos are going to make absolutely no sense to you if you go home if you're not working in the same workspace that I'm working in. And again, in Illustrator, the workspaces, and all the Adobe software, workspaces are up here. And what I work in is called Essentials Classic. And up until a few years ago, it was just Essentials. Adobe, in their infinite wisdom, decided this was now Essentials, and if you're, and this is what it defaults to, but if you're working in this, you're going to lose a lot of tools over here, and you're going to lose a lot of palettes and control panels over here. So for this to make any sense to you, make sure you're always working in Essentials Classic. And then the toolbars will be the same as when I demonstrate stuff, and then the control panels and palettes over here will be the same. So the next step on this, if I look at your logos on here, and it's kind of nice you have this little diagonal going on here. And let me show you this first of all. Once you get your type the way you want it, and I might close this space up a little bit. And then what you can do, and this will address how these lines end here a little bit. I'm going to take your line work here, and I'm going to go up to this panel again called Path. And again, it's paths we turn into strokes. What we're going to do is turn these into little vector effects. And one of the things you can do on here, and I showed you using this to customize logos. Let me show you this. So on one of your logos, you had this really nice kind of angle that you added to anything. And that's really easy to do with the Pathfinder tool. What I'm going to do is just draw a little bit of a rectangle here, and I'll put it in a different color so you can see it. And I'm going to use this shape and come up with an angle that I think looks, is going to look nice on here. And you have this in multiple lines here. So this rectangle I'm going to use to carve an angle here. And the key with all of this, and I keep mentioning this again, the name of the game is precision. So whatever angle I use there, I want to use down here on my B. And I'm just holding the Option key down to copy these things out. And you can, I don't know if it's going to work good over there. Maybe it would work on my O here a little bit. Maybe I want to put it on the ends of my S's here. And if you use the Pathfinder tool, I'm going to use the second one, which is minus front. And whatever shape is on top, it's going to subtract it. So now what I can do, and again, I would always copy this before I commit to this, because once you do this, there's kind of no going back. I can do it here. That's not what I wanted. Let's see how this is. That's one. Oh, this has to be whatever shape you're using to do minus front, it needs to be on top. So I'm going to bring that to the front. That left me a little residue over here, so maybe I'll just use my white arrow and get rid of that. And then going to the S. And that might be something that's going to finish this off a little bit more for you. You could even, if you wanted to. And now what I want to show you, I put some videos up, but we haven't really talked about it. But I know what you're going for your effect on here. And what I'm going to do is come over here and make this, instead of black, I'm going to make it a medium gray. And I'll show you why in a minute here. So there are videos up on the 3D effects. I'm going to show you a couple of them here. But here's the thing. This is another thing that Adobe changed actually about 6 months ago. So if you come down here where it says 3D and materials, up until about 6 months ago, it was only 3D, and those tools are right down here. 3D Classic. And I'll do these out of order for you very quickly. This one, the middle one, Revolve. And I would, if you're just learning Adobe, I would stick to these classic 3Ds on here. If you do this one is kind of pointless for logo design. What it does is it will drop a axis down the right or the left, and it will literally just spin your type around. So that's not going to be very useful for you for this. Why would you use this for logo design? Let's say I'm doing a logo for a store that sells wine. For the rotate tool, remember we talked about symmetry? When we were talking about Gestalt, I'm going to narrow this down a little bit. And I'm going to make it dark green. That's what a lot of wine bottles are. Here's where that revolve function comes in. If I'm doing something and I want 3D effects in it, if I draw half of it here, come up here to 3D materials, and again, stick to the classic ones here. Here's where revolve can come in handy. If you're trying to, don't know why it did that. In all the 3D effects, you have this cube, and the blue face of the cube is whatever you drew. And if you move this around, you can put it in all these different angles. So this is where rotate comes in handy. You can add perspective to it and really make it look like it's coming at you in 3D. All right. You can actually come down here if you choose more options. You can adjust the lighting on here and light it from different directions. You can lighten the lighting. There's a lot of options on here. Light intense, let's see, highlight intensity usually will really help it out there. So you probably don't want to use rotate. The second option is one I think would work well for your logo here. And to do this, these are all individual shapes right now, so we need to group it. Now if I come up to Effect, come down here to 3D and Materials, 3D Classics, I'm going to come up here to the top one. Now, what this allows you to do, you still have that same ability to move this around. The added dimension here is we have what's called an extrusion. That's the depth on this. So it always defaults at 50, but you can make that smaller if you want to, bigger if you want to. Same thing here. You can change the lighting on this and make it look much more ominous or whatever. But Noah, for you, what I would do is I would actually just keep this flat. And let me see, sometimes it's glitchy. Let me see if it'll let me do this. I'm going to lower the extrusion down really low to almost like 4 points. And you're not even going to see it because I'm looking at my square flat on. Here's what may give you that mark look that you like is if you add a slight bevel in here. And what a slight bevel will do is make it look a little bit more in 3D, and this is a little problematic here. So remember what I said about Illustrator not handling angles really well on here? Point proven, it's just really not handling the edges. So let's try a different thing. This thing I think might make this work a little bit better for you. For this I'm going to ungroup this because I want to work with it piece by piece. Here's what I'm going to do. We want this to have that 3D effect on it, right? Select your pieces here. This seems to be the winning panel of the day here. Come down here to Path. We're not going to outline it, it already is, but the next one done, Offset Path. What this will do is it will repeat your shapes either in or out, whatever you specify it. So if I take this down maybe to just 1 or 2 points, what that's going to do is give me this repeated shape outside your original shape. And here's what I wanted to show you on here. We'll need to ungroup this now. Let's choose your original shapes here for the name. Just for the time being, I'm going to make them black so that we can see this. And I'm going to go ahead and group this back again. So this is just your original drawing on here. But if you go to this extension out here and you go to the gradient tool, this is one of the things you can do. Choose a gradient, choose the linear gradient, and you can add a gradation in here to all these shapes if you want to. There is, however, another option, and that is I'm going to select the gray shape out here first, and I'll go ahead and come up here and group this. So now I have the exterior shape underneath, and I've got your black shape. We just talked about this on Monday, patterns. If you come up here to your swatches panel, and if you come down here to the library, and if you come down here to gradients, you're going to see down here metals. And if you want to get that metallic look to this, you can select this, and it will default put it in here on your top shape. And if you have the gradient tool, you can go back and adjust this to make it look how you want to on there. And you can do the same thing on the exterior. So that may help you get that kind of metallic look on here. And keep in mind, these are all kind of preset. I'd actually like this to be a little darker just so, you know, I could see your type on it. These are all customizable. So if I go up here to the window drop-down menu and do gradient, this is showing me the gradient. It starts light, here's the dark portion of it, then it goes light again. Well, I want this to stay a little darker so I can see the type on here. So I can either click this and pull it off, and that will darken it. You can always double click on these and maybe make it a little bit darker here. And then maybe at the very end where it's gotten so light on here, we can darken that up a little bit by double clicking on it. So you can totally customize these. Have no idea why it's doing that. Always love fun with Illustrator here. Oh, somewhere hiding back here. There it is. There you go. There's a little sliver of white hanging back there. So no, that could help give you that metallic look you're looking for on here. And I think that would be really nice. And I would just, you know, I would maybe pair it with a little bit heavier, more masculine, because this is technically sans serif. Maybe you want to pair it with kind of a chunkier font, like we call them slab serifs, like what the Sony logo is in. That might be a good way to go on here as well. All right, and just moving on for time's sake. So is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, Braden. Talk to me.
This is what I have so far. For the company name, I changed it a little bit. Instead of the I, it's not a Y.
Okay.
I didn't want to do design anymore, so I wanted to create a design. And that's what I have so far.
Did you use the transform tool for this?
I actually did use the square, the rectangle tool, and I just made them smaller and bigger.
Okay.
By moving around.
So it's looking good. Let's take a look at it in. And again, see, this is what happens when you don't outline the type. And so this is why. Let's see. Did you get these from Adobe? From Adobe. Let's activate them. I might be able to. Hopefully, I can on here. But that's another reason why before you send anything to a client, you always kind of want to. What do you know? You kind of want to outline the type so that if that popped up pink like that without your font, they'll decide, oh, you know what? I don't have that font, so I'll just put it in Papyrus. Seriously? Do you want that to happen to your logo? No. One thing I would do, this I think is looking really good on here. Let's see, am I in Illustrator here? The name of the game here is precision when you're doing a logo, especially for anything technology on here. And you've got some square corners on here, but you've got and it looks pretty good. What you could do, let me get rid of some of these things up here. When you drew all these squares, see how it has the little mitered corner on it? Is that something you like? Do you like that look?
I didn't really notice it before, but I guess I can go through it.
Whenever, yeah, what you can do, again, open the stroke panel here. What you can do is, oh, I'm sorry, it's the corner here. Second row. What you have right now, it should be interesting. So you can round it. I don't know why it's doing that. Because this is a computer logo, what I might do is opt for this for precision. And is your idea it's breaking apart into the bits here? I think for precision, if I start with a square, why is it doing that? You guys are always a mystery to me. Let's see. Uniform profile, no arrowheads.
You're not on the cap on the second. Put your cap on the
Well,
second.
yeah, this is where you miter it. Oh, here. Just take that down to 0. That should give you, no? Interesting. I've never had that happen before. Okay, if I go inside it's square, if I go outside it's mitered. I don't know why that is. No matter, I can just start this. So what I would do for that precision on here, Braden, start with a square. I'm going to do this. Let me do it smaller here. If you come up here under effect, and this goes for any time you have shapes that are repeating, it's a really great shortcut. You want to come down to distort and transform. And to get this effect that you're going for on here, what I'm going to do is make multiple copies on here. So let's just say 5. So I have 1. If I make 5, then I'll have a total of 6. We're going to figure out which looks better. The effect will either go from the center like it is now, or I can have it go from the upper right corner. We're going diagonal, so we're either going to want to do one of these 3, like tic-tac-toe down the center. And then here's the thing. Let's have each square get a little bit smaller. So the next square will be 75%. The one after that will be 75%. Why am I not seeing anything? Well, they're all stacked on top of each other right now. So we're going diagonal. I'm going to go minus 45 degrees here. Oh, no, I'm not. I take that back. If we start moving these, I'm going to go to the right, and I'm going to go down, and you can find out. Maybe yours go a lot faster here. So let's say this is 65 and 65, or maybe 50 and 50. And if you do that, we might need to adjust how, you can decide how angular you want this on here. I think we need to go a little bit more. So it's really kind of playing around with this. These get so small that maybe I don't need the last 2 on here. So I can just lower my copies. And like I said, let's see what it looks like if I go from the lower right-hand corner. That might get me closer to what I'm looking for on here. It's really touchy too, but you can find, I'm trying to line them up here. So that looks pretty good on here. You'll notice as I do this, not only did it make each square 50%, but it also made each square, the line work 50%. You can change that right here. In theory, doesn't matter because we can fix this in a minute here. And then if you have okay, for a computer company, the good thing is this is precise. It has that precision to it. I don't like the fact that the lines got thinner, but we can fix that. All you have to do, whenever you do any effect in Illustrator, what you're looking at is a preview image. So until we render this, it's not going to actually be there. So the way you render anything in Illustrator, either expand or expand appearance will be available to you. And now what we can do, we can give this all a uniform, should be able to give this a uniform weight here. Interesting. I love it when Illustrator doesn't do what I want it to. All right, I'm going to expand the appearance. I'm going to ungroup these. I want to see what's going on here. That's still a line. Yeah, you may have to go in here and match the line weight. And because I don't know why your file, it's doing this. Let's see. So once you have this rendered, then you can go and make copies of it. If you ungroup these, if you want to move them around. I definitely think playing with that Snap to grid will give it that precision you want on there. And then on the rest of the logo here, so you want to indicate that this is the shadow side on here. And one of the things that's killing your look, we're going to talk about perspective on here. It usually comes up a little later in the semester, but perspective is the system we use to give this the appearance of three-dimensional space. And I think to get what you're after on here, let's see, what I'm going to take your shapes here. I'm just taking the face of your computer here. Let me see if I have it. No. So what I'm going to do, can I not get this here? Jeez, come on. I'm going to do this on a different page for whatever reason. All right, I have your computer here. Now, for this to work, I actually only need these two shapes here. But for this to work, I think at least initially we're going to have to close this up here. And I'll show you why. I don't really need the interior squares in here. And to do this, we can go back to lines, but for demonstration, I just want to show you here. I'm going to make this a gray. Here's where you can get that three-dimensional look on here. If you come back up here, 3D and Materials, 3D Classic, I'm going to come to this first one. Here's where you can get that three-dimensional look by putting this in perspective. And what I neglected to do, this should be grouped. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat on your computer here. I'm going to put a little bit more gap between the monitor and the base on here. I'm going to take the line off as well. And I hate these mice. There we go. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I have the face of your computer, the body of the computer. If you come up under here, distort and transform, or I'm sorry, 3D, classic. You want to go to the first one, the bevel option. And we don't want to have, well, you could if you want to, put some perspective on here. But you're looking at your computer flat-faced here. If we add a little bit of extrusion on here, the reason you're not seeing it is because you're looking flat on it. So if I were to tilt this up slightly and change the lighting on here, in theory, but for you, I think, I don't know why it's done to it. So if I'm trying to show you the dimension on here. I'm just going to put a little bit, oh, I did this again. I forgot to group these again. All right, let's try this again. 3D Materials, Classic, Extrude and Bevel. This will give you a little bit of a dimension on here. We actually want it to go the other way, correct? But here's what I want to show you. Do you guys remember when I was showing you logo trends? And I don't know why this isn't giving me better lighting on here. Let me see. There you can see it. Do you remember when I was showing you logo trends and one of them was that look that was isometric perspective? That is built in here as well. If you click up here where it says custom rotation, that's because I was just moving this around everywhere. What you do if you come down here, all the bottom, this will give you that perfect isometric look to everything. And what you can do with this, I would probably do this. The easiest thing is to, let's look at this from the top here. And I just put your computer on its side. You can make this as thick or as thin as you want to. I'm just using the up and down arrows, so let's even that out at 30 points. If I hit OK with it, this is what I have. But you always have to, if I don't render this or expand it, it's going to screw it up. And here's the beauty about isometric perspective. It's usually some multiple of 60 degrees on here. Let's see. I take it back. This may not have been the best way to do this. All right, I'm going to show you a little trick here. It's a glitch, and I'm going to go back to 3D on here. We want your computer to be looking up and just slightly to the side here. Here's the problem with, let's see. Let's rotate. I want it back a little bit. I want it over here. And let's change the lighting on here. I don't know why this lighting isn't working like I want it to on here. So the key here is these first two numbers. You want it rotated a little bit on this axis. You want it rotated a little bit on this axis. And on this one, we don't need any perspective on here. We might have to look at the preview. You might have to rotate this a little bit as well. But once you get this and render it, object expand appearance on here, that will kind of give you the 3D effect you want. And we can select the bottoms on here and make them darker as well. All you need really are the shapes. You know what that, oh, it's doing that. Okay, I'm not happy with this. I'll show you my down and dirty trick for this. That's not giving me the effect I want on here. The problem is it twisted it a little bit. So let me show you option 3, which is going to be the best one up here. Here's your computer and your computer face, right? Here's what I'm going to do. Computer face, base. I'm going to go up here, and this is, you know what, I'm sure there's probably an Adobe approved way of doing this, but I'm always lazy. Here's what I'm going to do. Transform, we've been here before. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to guess here, 8 copies. And I'm going to have each one move. All right, that's too much. Actually, here's what I'll do. I don't need 8 copies. So I could do 1 copy and it's at a 45-degree angle. Or just for the demonstration period, here what I'm going to do is do 2 of them. Here's what I've got. Actually, before I do this, I know this is very confusing. I'm on the fly here. Before we start this, I am going to copy the face of your computer. Now what I'm going to do is, this is going to be the back of your computer. I'm going to make it darker gray. I am going to come up here and use this transform function. And we already decided 2 copies is good. And I'm going from this bottom corner, and I'm going to offset each one equally here. I just randomly chose 1/8 of an inch. You could do less than that if you want to. But here's what I'm going to do. This will make it really precise for you on here. Once you have this done, we have to render it. Now what I'm going to do is take your friend the Pathfinder tool, and what I'm going to do is unite them all. And once I've united them all, to get that shape in here, if I just delete these points and then hit unite again, delete these points here in the middle, delete these points here, oh, forgot to hit unite, delete these points here, and hit unite. Now I've got the dimension that you need on here. But what about the front and the back? Well, I copied those. Remember I copied those? They are floating out in the ether somewhere. So if I come up here and do paste in place, it's going to put it exactly where it needs to go. And that will give you the precision that I think you need on this. All right? 3rd time was the charm. A lot of this is always trial and error and everything. The last thing on yours I want to talk about is, where did it go up here? Where did I put you? On your type. One of the things that can really finish everything off, so you downloaded these fonts, right? They're actually really good fonts for this, so I think you made a good choice on here. I think the spacing is pretty good. I might tighten the space. Remember, anytime you see those diagonal letters, you kind of have to close the space up a little bit. But here's what I think would really finish this off nicely is if your angles on here all kind of matched, especially the Y's on here. So this is what we do when we talk about customizing logos on here. What I would probably do on here, to do this, I'm going to outline your text. And so under type, I'm going to do create outlines. I think this angle from this Y is really good. Here's a really great tip to an illustrator. Let me make this a color you guys can see here. I am going to just get a line here on the angle for Braden's angle on the Y here. Make it a little thinner here so we can see it. Even thinner. So you can see my angle's a little bit off. Let's try and get that more exact here. And why am I doing this? This is going to be my guideline for the other Y. Oh. So I'm going to take this guideline I made, I'm going to slide it right over here to where your Y is. And here's the thing, anything you draw in Illustrator, you can turn into a guide. If I come up here under View, come down here to Guides and do Make Guides, it will give me that blue line that I can, it won't print, it won't show up on the file when you send it to me, but the guidelines will be there for you. And then what you could do is select, let's ungroup your type. What I would probably do is take your Y, come over here to the scale tool, and hiding underneath here is the shear tool. And I would probably just change my Y ever so slightly so that the angle matches up. And that, I think, is going to really make it look more finished on here. And like I said, I would probably tighten this up a little bit. But this is looking great. I think you're going to have a really sharp logo. This would also, and this goes for everyone, I know everyone's designing in black and white, but just a heads up, when you show clients black and white logos, they think you're cheating them. Because everyone knows color is more expensive than black and white. So even if in your mind you know this logo is going to look best in black and white, I would like you guys to explore some color options for this as well. All right, and then I'm trying to wrap this up and get everyone seen here. Let's see, Miguel, are you here?
So the first one on top is closest to my original drawing, but I didn't like that the water drop was upside down. So I did the second one, so I tried to put up too much like one, like movie, and then the final one on the bottom is what I decided.
Okay. You're going to hate me. I'm going to show you something. Don't you always hate me when I show you these things? So, I like this combination. I think it's really good. I think it's like a precision thing on here. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, with your, I'm going to come back to this here. First of all, water drop. You don't have to reinvent the wheel on here. I'm going to start with the ellipse tool here. And I'll use this eyedropper tool to pick up your blue. To get that perfect water drop, it's real easy. Come up here to your pen tool. And I'm going to come down to the V-shaped anchor tool. What this does is if it's a curved line or curved point, it will make it sharp. If it's sharp, it'll make it curved. So if I bring that and do this, now it's not quite drop shaped yet. But if I grab my white arrow and then sweep and select the two side ones, I can bring it down there and kind of make that perfect drop shape. You can make this as thick or thin as you want on here. And this may be like Braden's. I think I know how I can make this work for you, but it might take a little trial and error on here. What you can do, let's marry your truck up here to the water droplet. So the way you have this constructed, you've got the window shapes here. What I would probably do on here, let's go ahead. I might redraw this a little bit because it's a little lumpy on here. How can you redraw this and do this very quickly? Let me show you some options. I'm going to use the rounded rectangle. And I need it to be sharper corners. I'm trying to make your cab here. So if I use the up arrows on my keyboard before, I'm sorry, is it up or down? Oh, there we go. So I'm using the up and down keyboard to get kind of this rounded look in here. And when you're building stuff with shapes, try not to use outlines on everything. It's just going to make your life a lot harder down the line here. So I'm trying to build the start of your cab here. This is going to be the engine compartment. So I'm using all the same rounded rectangle shapes. Why is this? I'm giving up on this today. Oh, actually, I can just do this. I'm going to grab this. So I'm making your cab and your engine compartment here. And I'm using the exact same rounded rectangle, making this one a little bit longer because what I'm going to do is line them up here. We have to get the slope on this a little bit, and what you can do is start with this shape, and I'm going to just delete this, all right? And again, whenever you delete points, remember that is not filled in, even though it looks like it. You always have to do this. And I showed you earlier how to get the smoothest curves, use the fewest line possible. So I want to try and get the slope of his cab up here. If I come up here to the remaining and I'm turning this into more of a curve. We can adjust it however we want. I realize what's going on at the back there. I can grab that handle and just clean this up and make it just a little bit of a curve in there. So you can create whatever you want in here. And I'm going to go back to my original kind of rectangle here. Actually, I'll draw a new one. Here will be the cab window. We'll make that white. Here will be the windshield, indication of the windshield. So I'm going to want to extend it out here a little bit. And again, I'm doing this very quickly. I would use more finesse on this. If you use, the way you have this right now, if I move your logo onto a colored background, the white windows are still going to be there. So if I use my Pathfinder tool, select this in the cab, select the cab again in this window. I'm using the minus front. Now if I move it onto a colored surface, I don't have the white shapes there. And then finally, I just marry the whole thing here. We can actually add in your wheel well too if you want to. And again, for speed's sake, I'm doing this pretty quick. So I'm going to select both of these, do minus front. So now I've got your cab shape. And the last thing I'm going to do, I like how you have the water drop and kind of snugging around this a little bit. What we can do, and this is going to be for, I think I made your cab too long here. Let's shorten that up a little bit. I'm not going to put the wheel in here. I'm going to add that later. But what you can do is I want to have your drop kind of snug around your cab here. And we didn't even talk about putting the reflection in here. That's pretty easy. I'm just going to copy this and pick up your color here. And what you can do to get it to work around here. This is understanding how to use all the tools at your disposal. I'm going to rotate this only because I know this effect only works horizontally. Remember the warp tools I showed you? If I take your reflection and arc it down a little bit, and then I render it, and then I rotate it back. That way, again, precision is the name of the game here. And, you know, shorten it, you can rotate it, put it in there however you want. I want the drop to snug around your cab here. So what I'm going to do is select your drop. I know you guys' heads are spinning. He's going so fast. I know, it's time. That's why I record these. I did this earlier. I did offset path. That I did it on Noah's where we outlined the type. Here's what I'm doing. I'm going to do a little bit larger. Just so you can see it, I'm just going to put it in a different color. And if I bring my cab over here, why is that outlined? I don't want to outline. What I can do is extend this a little bit. So what I can use is use this purple shape or the magenta shape and Hate when that happens. Carve this out so you get the... And why am I doing all of this? This may be a way to put it in that circle. I'm going to start with a perfect circle here. I'm going to drop this that I made with the drop in your cabin here. Somewhere along the line I lost the... Somewhere along the line I lost your reflection in here. So let me grab the whole thing, group it. Go back to my... One of these days you're going to come to school and find all these mice laying in the parking lot, smashed to pieces. All right. Oh, it still didn't copy it. Oh, screw it. Anyhow, here's what I want to show you. If I make this a little bigger, and I take this circle and I bring it to the front, and just so you can see this, I'm going to not fill it. What I would do is maybe center both of these. And of course I grouped this and it didn't group it. This is going to take a little trial and error to get it the way you want it in here, but I made it a little bit bigger than the circle. I'm going to come over here and center it. But this is another warp tool that you have available to you. Actually, maybe I'll make it a little bit smaller so it fits in here. If you come over here and go up to Edit or Object, these are another way of doing warps. You have all the same warp tools available here, but this is the one I wanted to show you, Make with Top Object. Whatever shape is on top, it's going to try and fit it in there. Maybe not the prettiest way. You know what? What did I say about trial and error on here? Let me try this. Oh, here's another option on here for you. So remember how I said you can do any shape and make it a guideline? I'm going to do just a big circle here. And I'm going to come up here under View, and I'm going to make it a guideline. So now I have this light blue circle. Let's try this a couple different ways. You can put this in a circle and try and line things up here. And maybe it goes a little bigger so it fits in the circle. Maybe to do this, what we have to do is bring this in a little bit and play with these points and get it to fit. I would use the circle as the guide. I think the closest you can get this to being in the circle, I think, is going to make it look the cleanest in here. I really hope that, you know, here's an issue where it doesn't really fit in there. You can always come back here and add a point. And have it fit in here. And then this is a good example of using this anchor point tool to turn it more into a circle. On your drop, another thing that you consider in here, I can make this bigger. And let's see if it will work. There is a twist option in here where you can, nothing's working the way, that looks awful. Remember what I said about, you know, trial and error on here? Inflate. What is that? Looks awful too. Here's what I would do. And unfortunately, these warp tools only work when things are horizontal. I'm going to turn this 90 degrees. Similar to what I just did. I'm going to arc this. And render it and then rotate it again. This could get you maybe more of a drop shape in here, but I think the key on here, you know, it's kind of getting there. I can take this shape and, you know, take it out of my I think the key on all these, I think you're in a really good place, but I just think some of these lines are a little lumpy in here. So anyway, there's a way to clean it up a little bit. I think you do need to have I do think the key on this, though, is getting it so that it forms a really nice circle on here. And I thought I had some shortcuts for you, but it may just be figuring out a way that you can get everything so that it fits in a circle. I think it's going to be much more of a really cool stamp logo. And we'll be looking at these again. I can help you on with this next week as well. What we also have to do, though, is figure out how type is going to work with this. You need to show us the name of the company. So for Monday, what I would do is try and come up with a bunch of fonts that you think may work, and I can help you with that. And I know I'm running out of time here. Braden I have here. We did McKenna. So talk to me about yours.
Those are all just like I try out like complete opposite version to see which one fit, and I ended up really liking the orange. And then there's more that I worked on past what I turned in that matches to where it's the same kind of font, and it says Nature's, and then the apostrophe is the two leaves. So that would be like the two versions of the brand that I have. Maybe like the orange is going on like cups for smoothies and stuff, and then Nature's is what would be like on the front of the store.
You've got some ideas here. Was your idea here to do like vintage signs?
Yeah, that was like one of the versions I was gonna try and make it like that old Surfer Shack tiki thing, but
So here's the deal. The one issue on that one you're going to have is when it goes small on that wood background, it's going to look really difficult. This is where doing some research on stuff really comes in handy. If I just Google Surfer Shack signage. So trying to pull this stuff out of your memory or trying to fake it on here. And this is, I always have to stress, this is not about ripping anyone off. But kind of have an idea what you're looking at, because Surfer Shack can go a lot of different ways on here. What I get from your logo is more like old-time woodworking. So you don't copy anyone, but there's kind of a style and a color palette if you want to go in that direction on there.
I think the direction that I was going was the orange. So that
I'll be honest with you, I really like the hippy dippy logo or type you have here. I think going that kind of, when people think organic nature and whatever, again, we deal with visual shorthand and touchstones that people associated with it. So if you wanted to do something with that, that would be fine. This is fine too. The one challenge you're really going to have with this is it tends to look like New Jersey. So the key is finding a font that's going to work for you with this for Nature's Juice. And I think one of the things that you may be challenged on here is, and I'll show you how to do this. Let me pick, let's see. I'm going to choose actually a serif font just because I know it has a really cool J in here. Now, here's the issue you run. I just showed this with Miguel's here. And there's a tendency to take this and say, oh, I want to put it in a circle. So I'll use that warp technique that Steve just showed me, and I'm going to center this. And then I'm going to come up here and do make with top object. Oh, it actually did better than I thought it was going to do on here. I think if it was me, this would be one way to go. I think it kind of might be a combination here. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to take this and take the effects off here. Let me copy this ahead of time. Shockingly, this almost worked after I was so sure it was going to work with Miguel's. Here's the problem you have with this is readability. I think if you want to go in this direction, just be aware that New Jersey abbreviation is going to be hanging over your head. I think by doing the orange with the leaves on it might help you, but I would definitely make the leaves a little bit more prominent. Going back to your Illustrator file, the J is pretty good in here, but I'm going to move this off to the side for a second and come back here. Sometimes when you do that, that's going to distort your type a little bit. And let's see, how can I do this? The question becomes, all right, I'm going to cheat. So I'm going to take my warp type and let's see, I'm going to center it. So here's the problem doing this, is it's distorting the serif on the top. It's pretty good here, but it's turning into a hook here, and it's not great here. So here's what I'm going to do before I get to that. I am going to use the same effect that I did a second ago, but I'm going to go negative on it. I'm going to use this to create new serifs in here. Oh, that's not going to work either. All right, I'm going to cheat. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm trying to create serifs that I can use over here and here and here and make it look better. So I'll give them different colors here. And I'll take the outline off here. I'm going to use my best friend, the Pathfinder tool. I'll get you guys out of here in a couple minutes. I just want to make sure everything's seen here. And what is going on? Now I'm going to throw the whole computer out. Oh, I see what happened. Just bear with me 1 second. All right. So the readability issue I had was with the serifs up here, which aren't great. And I created this ring shape. And what we can do is kind of fake our own serifs in here. Before we do that, I also am not crazy about how curved the N is here. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle here to mimic the leg on here. And I will give this a different color just so you can see everything. And let's see here. Bless you. And just for good measure, let me show you some other shapes here. This is the Pathfinder tool. So what are these little shapes going to be? These are going to be the ends of my new serifs over here. And I'll put one down here. So what the hell am I doing with everything? All right. Here's the MJ. Did I render this? I think I did. All right. I've got a mishmash of stuff up here. This is what is really great with Pathfinder. I'm going to select the whole lot of it. And now I'm going to use this first one in the second row. It's called divide. And what happened? What do you think happened? Everywhere all these shapes intersected or overlapped is now a separate shape. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab my white arrow. I'm going to select that. Select that. Looks like I have a line in here. Select that. And let me pull this off so we can see it. I'm going to select here and get rid of that. But watch. I'll get rid of my circle here. I'll get rid of this. There's way too many little pieces in here. I know, I've lost you. I didn't intend for this to go this long. I don't need this. But what I'm trying to do here is improve that. So if you use some of these effects in Illustrator, this is the rectangular shape I used to try and make a new serif. And this was the original curved part of the... So the whole point here, and it'll become a little bit more apparent. Now if I take everything and put it in black, this is still not great over here. I probably would shorten my J, but at least now the N is for New Jersey is reading a lot cleaner than what you have up here. So I think it just gets a little chunky in here. This is tricky because it still has to read as a J. So I think if you want to go in this direction, I think that's fine, but I think it's going to need a little bit more work in here. All right. All right, that was all I had turned in. Let's see if I have anything else. So because of the length of the class here, and I know I'm losing you guys. Oh, I have Howard up here.
Yeah.
Alex, we did. Braden, we did. So let's talk about yours here. So, do you have a design? Is this a design you like? Which is your favorite up here?
I probably like the first one better.
Okay.
It looks like it's like the wings that are like kind of sticking out.
I'm trying to see. Everything appears to be locked in here.
Yeah, I locked it.
Ah, it's all hidden down here. So you thought you could prevent me from screwing with your logos. It wasn't going to work. Here's the overall. I mean, I like the FF design on here, but let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Would you board an airplane where the wings are not level?
No, I mean, I kind of know that. I try to fix that.
I think the thing on here, as long as you make one of these, oh, you already married them together here. I think you really have to. Yeah, I would not rotate these. So I would start with an F. I'll tell you what, I'll just do this. I know you guys hate when I do this.
Because I have a hard time doing the reflection of that.
So I'm going to show you how to do that. But I'm going to go back to your F here because we want to make sure that I eliminated the wonky F over there.
Okay.
So now I have wings that are perfectly straight. I might even, right now it's just a font. I might customize this a little bit, so make it look really more like, kind of like the wing insignia. All I did was use the white arrow and grab these 2 points. And if you hold the shift key down, it will keep them level in here. Or what you might want to do is, yeah, I think that might help. I'll leave it up to you. But when you get one F the way you want it, to copy it, hold the Option key down. And then if you hold the Shift key while you're doing it, it will keep it exactly lined up here. And then what you want to do is come over here and use the Reflection tool. And here's the thing. If you grab the Reflection tool and try and do it yourself, this is where it gets wonky. all you have to do is once you have the reflection here tool, if you just double click it, it will tell you, do you want to do it horizontal? No, you want to do it vertical. And it will keep it perfect. And then you won't have that issue on there. So I would do that. I might choose a different font for design just to complement it. I'm a big fan of having, sans serif logo with serif descriptor or vice versa. I like to mix up my fonts. I'll leave it to you. The one thing you have created here a very vertical oriented logo. So there's a lot of energy going straight down the center of it. And you've chosen an italic type, which tends to then send you off vertically. So I don't know if you really want this to be italic or oblique. I think you might be better off having this arrow shape lead down to the word design. I think that might be a better solution on there. All right, and let's see who else. I think I got everyone I got. So if you did not have something to review today, I am not going to try and have you finish this up. Yes, ma'am. Well, it's the end of the class. So anything that got turned after 8, I'll review it with you guys on Monday. But everyone else got stuff turned on time, so that's why we went through their stuff first. I'm not going to make you turn this in before we go on spring break. It'll be due the week after we come back from spring break. However, next week I am going to start talking about branding. So if you finish your logo before spring break, if you want to wait till after spring break and work on the branding, but if you want to jump on that and get ahead of it, you can do that as well. All right, thank you guys. I think everyone's got some really cool stuff.